make a presentation. Then I am told we can have some interaction. So I will be happy to spend time. Depends on the next speaker, so I don't want to take anyone else's time. But so let me tell you about transforming institutions. I think the theme of the event is research for a resilient, self-reliant, Viksit Bharat, empowering India's research future. I think all of that essentially is linked to transforming our institutions and what we can do to make innovation a mainstay of our campuses. In fact, today in Times of India, I just wrote an article which appeared on the editorial page. You can also, whatever I am going to talk, I also wrote in that Times of India article today. And so I served IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi for now total 25 years. And BITS Pilani, I am there now for the past 2 years and 3 months. Right? So I will also tell you, what I have been doing. At IIT Bombay, I was a faculty member, so most of my research was all done at IIT Bombay. In IIT Delhi, I was the director, so therefore I could also do many things which I could not have done as a faculty member because I wanted to see, how we can transform institutions, a place like IIT Delhi. And then now I am in BITS Pilani. Whatever I did at IIT Delhi, I am launching all of those schemes in BITS Pilani with a different name, of course, but otherwise, almost everything is getting done and we are seeing similar results. So whatever I will talk about is also based on, my experience of as a researcher and as an administrator at these places. So I think this, okay. So the current status of India's R&D, if you look at, what's happening? So India today, we have more institutions than China, right? But we don't have more students than China. I think that is one fundamental problem with Indian higher education system. We have institutions, but the size is very small. Some of our top universities, like let's say JNCSR, Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Research, which is one of the finest institutions in the country for sciences, has 40 faculty. Right? You look at any of the DST institutions, great institutions, but 40 faculty or 50 faculty. Look at IITs, right? All, 23 IITs today will have about 80,000 students, 90,000 students. And you go to US, right? One large university in the US will have about 60,000 students, one university, right? And 23 IITs this year would admit about 17,000 undergraduate students. One large university in the US, one university would admit that many students. The same with China too. So though we have created lots of new institutions, for whatever reason it is, but we haven't scaled them up. So our biggest problem is large number of institutions, but all subcritical. And so that's the reason why we don't have our gross enrollment ratio, right? In the specific age group of children who wish to find a seat in universities, only 1 in 4 today can find a seat. Only 1 in 4. Because our gross enrollment ratio in higher education is just about 27%. In China, it is 50%. In US, it is 70%. So I think our gross enrollment ratios are small, and we have so many children, who are looking for quality education, which we are not able to provide. And in terms of research, we are ranked 3rd in the world. Right? That's one thing where lots of papers are being written, and I think I don't have to tell you, what is happening there. Many of you already know about it. And but patents, because somebody said that you have to file patents, so we are also filing patents now, as many patents as you want. I know one university which said, 100 patents in 100 days. I said, but how can you file 100 patents in 100 days? How would you get idea? You cannot force me to think of a new idea to file a patent, right? Patents are, you are looking at something, you are doing deep research, you suddenly had an idea, so now you want to, because you had a great idea, you want to file a patent. Now, how do you force people to file 1 patent a day? It's just not going to work. But then, there is one university in Chandigarh which has filed more patents than 23 IITs together. Right? Now they are advertising that, we have done that. I said, if you have published so many papers, feel ashamed of it. You should not be talking great about it because you cannot be competing, with some of the finest institutions with the kind of resources you have. I mean, IIT Delhi budget is almost 1,000 crores now, right? Each IIT would have 1,000 to 1,500 crores of investments, per year. Now, competing with these institutions, you need to invest money also. Without those investments, you cannot achieve, those kind of numbers. So, but then people not only do that, but, publicly advertise. And recently there was an argument on LinkedIn, where one of these universities was saying that we are better than Harvard, right? I mean, there's no questions asked. We are better than Harvard. So we are publishing more papers, we are doing all of that. But the problem is people think that it's also okay to publish more papers than Harvard with 1,000th of investment, right? Harvard budgets will be like 6-7 billion US dollars, right? With that kind of investment, you can do that kind of research. But with 1,000th of, investment, to say that we will do as good research as Harvard, I think, these are the kinds of challenges we are seeing in India. And in India, anytime you set a target in terms of number, right, we meet it. I mean, that nothing, no questions asked. I think you want how many patents you want, we can file that many patents. How many papers you want, we can write that many papers. I think that is big challenge right now, because our agencies which are supposed to be, looking at these integrity issues, which are supposed to be, taking care of accreditation, they have all failed, right? I mean, many court cases, many arrests, and you know that story better than I do. And I am getting to know it because in BITS Pilani, we also have to go for NAC accreditation. Until in IITs, I never knew NAC. I never even participated in any NAC anything. But these are the challenges right now. We are also 9th for citations. And again, the citation game. I mean, so that's another kind of a problem. So in numbers, we seem to be doing very well, right? But on innovation. Now, what is innovation? Innovation is you are generating all this knowledge, right? And somebody is making use of this knowledge for societal good. A product, a system, something which will give you some returns on the investments, right? The knowledge to wealth translation. That is what innovation is. There we are ranked 39th right now. And that's mostly because of the IT and startups that we have had. We have about 117 unicorns now. I think thanks to the IT revolution, the e-commerce and all of that. So I think we are at least doing well on the innovation front. But in deep technologies, a technology-related kind of innovation, I don't think anything much is happening on that. And we are not spending money. That's our biggest challenge. We want to, be the world's best, but we don't want to put any money into that. So we are 54th as a percentage of GDP allocation for R&D. So that's our biggest challenge. And we don't even have enough scientists, right? We are, per million population, we are ranked 83rd right now in the world in terms of number of researchers per million population. India has about 300 scientists per million population. And US will have about 4,500 scientists per million population. China will have about 2,000 scientists per million population. India has about 280 scientists per million population. We don't have enough scientists because our institutions are all small and we haven't invested enough in our institutions. Not much is happening on the academia-industry collaboration. Among some 130 countries they have surveyed. These are all from the world, intellectual property. There is a agency, which is a very well-known agency, which does all these rankings every year. That's the one which, all the government also quotes for innovation. The same agency also gives these other numbers. You can check that they are more detailed. So 86th in academia-industry collaboration. So that's again something which is a problem with India. And we are publishing papers, but we are way behind, China and US, both in terms of quality or quantity. And it's not only that government is not spending money, even industry is not spending money on R&D, right? The industry spending of R&D currently is 0.2% of GDP. It's not the money that they are giving you, it's the money they are spending on themselves for research, right? That's just 0.2% of GDP. In comparison, US, for example, the US industry spends 2.7% of GDP. US economy is so much bigger compared to Indian economy, right? And South Korea spends 3.9%. Even UK spends 2.1%. China is also around 2%, their industries. That's why all the new product developments, new processes, new technologies, all come out of industries in these countries. I think that's only because their industry is doing research. Our industry is not doing research. And that's the reason why you don't see any new product development happening out of our industry. So this is what India is today in terms of numbers. numbers. And of course, not all numbers, are things which you can agree with, because we know how some of these numbers can be fudged and all of that, right? And but despite anything, we are writing lots of papers, right? So per dollar spent, Indians can write more papers than anybody. That's a universal truth now. I mean, this is official. For the amount of money we are spending, for the number of papers we are writing, India can write more papers than China, right? This is the only place where we are ranked number 1 right now. And then comes the unicorns, right? If you look at the unicorns, India has over 100 plus unicorns. Today, that number is about 118 or so unicorns. So unicorns are the ones where their valuation has touched $1 billion, and which is good. But if you look at all these unicorns, right, what is common, between them? The only thing that is common between them is they are all based on the business model innovations. The business model is somebody is aggregating all the taxis, launched Ola, right? Somebody is aggregating restaurants, started a company. Somebody is aggregating, taxis, and, so it's all basically aggregation model, right? That aggregation kind of a thing, US, Amazon, all of them also did that, and Indian companies copied it, and now we have many unicorns, which are all, whether Swiggy, Zomato, or Ola, or Uber. Uber is, of course, not an Indian company, but these are the kind of companies. More, I call them the aggregation kind of a model. And, I keep reviewing projects. Somebody recently came to me and said, I want to aggregate all the Dobis, right, and I want to start a company, right? So somebody is aggregating carpenters, somebody is aggregating Dobis. So this is now a well-known kind of a model for building wealth right now in the country. But there is really no, technology product-based kind of a unicorn as of now. There are soonicorns, the ones which might become a unicorn are called soonicorns, which are soon to be unicorns. There are some soonicorns now which can, in the product space, but they have all taken, I know one of them, which is from BITS Pilani, Mall Bio, Dr. Chandrasekhar Big Tech, right? He spent 25 years. He started his company 25 years ago. Now after 25 years of hard struggle, right, now he has a company which is doing very well and all of that. But for deep tech unicorns, deep tech companies, it takes that kind of a time period, 20 years, 25 years. Whereas the aggregation kind of a model, these companies become unicorns in a matter of, 3 to 5 years kind of a thing. So therefore, everybody is after them. But how will the deep tech companies start, right? They will start, they have to happen in the academic institutions. Because to build a product out of research, right? Now, where is a lot of good people doing research? It's happening in academic institutions. So therefore, if at all any product-based companies need to come out, right, at some point in time in India, it has to happen out of academic institutions. So therefore, that ecosystem we need to strengthen. And that is when that Viksit Bharat and all of that, will become a reality. So if you look at any educational institutions, there are 3 aspects in an educational institution. One is education, of course, you impart knowledge. The second is research, where you generate knowledge. The third is innovation, where you utilize this knowledge to develop, products for societal good, right? These are the 3 aspects for any higher educational institution. While education and research, we seem to be doing okay, in terms of numbers at least. But on the innovation front, we are definitely not there. We are not using even the knowledge that we generate, to do anything which is for public good. So this is a challenge that we need to overcome right now. So I will tell you how we can overcome that. So another major problem is, why are we not developing any products in India? That's because our top talent is not doing science, right? Today, all good students want to do computer science, right? They all become IT kind of professionals. But to develop a product of this nature, this mobile phone, there are at least a dozen Nobel Prizes. Behind this mobile phone, there are a dozen Nobel Prizes which are given to almost every aspect of that mobile phone. Whether it is the display, camera, wireless technology, battery, memory, processor, polymers, transistor, everything has got Nobel Prize in that. So out of those over dozen Nobel Prizes came a mobile phone. And if you are not doing science, you will never be able to innovate when it comes to such technology. So our top talent not doing core engineering, our top talent not doing science, right, is essentially, is what is helping us to become an IT nation, but it will never help us to build any deep tech kind of products, for applications, for, with that kind of a complexity. And so that's what we expect to see. And so we need to also bridge the gap between academia and industry, which is again a big challenge that we have, in the country. And these are working in silos, right? And so this is where university research goes up to technology readiness level 3 or 4, a proof of concept. So once you do a proof of concept, you publish a paper, and if somebody tells you, you file a patent, and your job is done, right? Then you move on to next project, right? But then the industry doesn't take anything at the TRL 3 level. Industry wants things at the TRL 7, TRL 8, right? TRL 7 is where the reliability is done, the product prototypes are done, the market specifications are met, right? Once all those tests are done, some kind of a product launch is done, you're done those tests, at that level industry will get interested. And but who will bridge that gap? Industry wants it at TRL 7, 8. Academia can only do up to TRL 3, 4. We don't have any institutional mechanism right now, to handhold the researchers from TRL 3 to TRL 8. And this is what I have been writing about. I have been working with ministries, and hopefully, in the next few months, we should announce something for the census. At least in the census area, we should be able to build, those institutions in between, which will work with academia and take things up to 7, 8, so industry will get interested. And in at least a narrow area of census, there is a major national effort happening. I have taken it up with Ministry of Electronics, and you will hear something called the National Sensor Hub. So that's what we are creating right now. But that's a big challenge right now, and which we need to basically bridge. The higher educational institutions, this is our problem. The education, research and innovation are decoupled, right? I mean, what you teach in the classroom has nothing to do with what you do as research, right? In many institutions, of course, there are different institutions where the research and education can also be coupled, and innovation is also completely different. So but where do you get the research problems from? Most of the research problems come out of library, right? When the student joins, the student goes to library, does literature review, reads 100 papers, knows some problems, solves it, and writes some more papers. So all the research that originates in library also goes back to library, right? But ideally, where should the problems come from? The problems can come from industry, problems can come from societal observation, the societal problems can come from the ministries, right? Or problems can come from the strategic agencies, defense, ISRO. In the morning you had those presentations, right? They giving you problems. I think that is how the researchers need to find their problems. I have actually done a survey on that, based on my own contacts. Where do our students find their problems from? I can tell you, depending on which university you go, on an average, 90% of students are generating their problems from the library, right? That's what is currently the situation in India. Ideally, what is desirable? The desirable thing is the research needs to be tightly linked to all of these, other stakeholders, and which continuously collaborate with the universities and then give the right kind of problem statements and give the funding. That is how things actually need to happen. The only ministry we go to for research funding is Department of Science and Technology, or Department of Biotechnology, or rather Ministry of Science and Technology. They don't have any problems of their own, right? You go with your problem, defend your problem, and get money, right? Because Ministry of Science and Technology, what problem they will have? They will not have any other problem. But if you go to, for example, Ministry of Roads and Buildings, right? They will have a lot of problems because they are building roads and they know the problems there. Go to Ministry of Food Processing, they have a lot of problems, which they can give you, but they don't have any funding mechanism. The ministries which have the problems don't have funding mechanisms. Ministries which don't have the problems, they have all the money allocated to distribute to academia. That is our biggest challenge. What's the simple solution? The simple solution is Ministry of Science and Technology to cooperate with all these other ministries, get the problem statements along with some funding from these ministries, and then engage with academia. But that doesn't happen because this secretary will not talk to those secretaries, and it will never happen in Delhi. I lived 7 years in Delhi actually. So therefore, that's a big problem right now. So these are all these decoupled kind of funding patterns, the funding systems, the decoupled nature of our institutions, right, is our biggest challenge. And the only way we will ever be able to, do research which is impact for the society is when you move to the left side of that, and that is when, things will start happening. And, I have been writing about it, I have been talking about it. Some things are changing, some things are not changing, but, I think there are, much bigger problems than that anyway. So in IIT Delhi, I went to IIT Delhi in 2016, and I went with a grand plan. I said, as an individual researcher, I will also tell you briefly what I was doing as an individual researcher. I was able to develop products, I was able to start companies. I have gone through that tough phase of taking something from the lab to the field, right? And I know those challenges. I said, let me solve those problems, at the institutional level. At IIT Delhi, I called it the idea factory approach. Right? What is this idea factory approach? I call idea factory approach as bringing unlike minds together, people who don't think alike, bringing them together, right? Create the right atmosphere, but structure the interactions. When I say structure the interactions, if you bring two people to the room and forget about them, nothing will happen, right? But if you bring two people together to the room who have diverse disciplines, you need to support them, you need to structure the interactions by giving them funding, by monitoring the work, and all of that is also important. So when you do that, right? So what are unlike minds? Unlike minds are people with different cultural backgrounds, and getting a lot of people from different countries to come and work with us. You go to any US university, the first thing that strikes you is the cultural diversity on the campus. People from all over the world coming and interacting with each other. That kind of a cultural diversity, there is no university in India which can provide you, right? That we are missing completely. Now you can say that, but India is already a very diverse country. There is between somebody from Bengal, somebody from Tamil Nadu, there is nothing in common, right? What is common between somebody coming from Calcutta and somebody coming from Tamil Nadu? They eat different food, they even look different, they speak different languages. These are like two different countries, right? But our problem in India is these boards. All of them would still have taken CBSE, right? So therefore, their education is still the same textbooks, the same patterns, the same examinations. So that removes whatever diversity they had. If any diversity was left after the 10th standard or 12th standard, that is basically killed by the JEE examination, right? So once they go to quota, now everybody is same. Where you came from doesn't matter. If a problem is given to you, you have to solve the problem in exactly the same way. Because if you don't solve the problem in that way, you cannot solve it in JEE in that 1 second. You won't be able to get that idea to solve that problem. So therefore, with all these examinations we have basically removed the diversity. We have homogenized the entire society. So CBSEs and JEE examinations have basically removed the diversity. So students behave exactly the same way. You pose a problem to them, they all solve it in exactly the same way. That diversity we have actually lost now. And if anything was remaining, I thought the universities are diverse, but thanks to CUET now, even that is also gone, right? I mean, JNU used to have such diverse background students, but now JNU also is forced to admit students to that common university entrance test and all that. So I think that is our biggest problem. We are losing the diversity, which is actually pretty good, pretty important from a research point of view. What is other diversity? People from different disciplinary training, right? People who have, electrical engineers collaborating with biologists. I can tell you there are infinite number of problems. And I wrote at least 50 papers in top journals world over with my chemistry colleagues. At IIT Bombay, I had a very strong collaboration with chemistry. Even now I get invited to many of the chemistry conferences because I have worked with chemists, for almost like 15 years now and wrote so many papers with them. That's because there is so much that you can do being an electrical engineer, a microelectronics engineer like me, working with chemistry. Because at the end of the day, everything is materials, and they have only made it in micrograms, right, milligrams, but those materials can be very valuable, for application. So that I realized, and I actually built my career. My Infosys prize was actually for working with chemists and doing some of the very innovative things that we did. So I think that kind of collaboration we need to, create now. People with different attitudes. That's where academia-industry collaborations will come in. When an industry professional comes and talks to you, the same problem statement, they look at it very, very differently. Now I interact very closely with the Aditya Birla Group people. They have a totally different mindset. The people who have that, complete corporate kind of a life, they think differently, they completely are different when it comes to looking at a problem. And now that is again the attitude difference that we need in our academic institution. So in IIT Delhi, we launched at least 20 new schemes to basically bring people from different cultural backgrounds, people with different disciplinary backgrounds and different attitudes together. So that's a kind of an atmosphere we created through multiple initiatives. We called it FIRP, the Faculty Innovation and Faculty Interdisciplinary Research Program. We created IPFP, International PhD Fellowship Program. So we did a lot of things there. And with DRDO, in fact, we received 480 crores from DRDO to do research on DRDO problems. And that JATC I created during my time. We created POP, the Professor of Practice position. So we did all of that. When we did all of that, then we also created an ecosystem. So a lot of ideas were coming. We started schemes for faculty to become entrepreneurs. And so that program is called FIRE at IIT Delhi. FIRE stands for Faculty Innovation and Research-Driven Entrepreneurship. So we said, if you are a faculty member, if you have found solution to a problem, institute will give you 50 lakh rupees as a grant. You can take sabbatical to do a startup. We went to board, we got approval from board saying, if you as a faculty member, if you want to start a company, you get this paid leave for 1 year, 50 lakh rupee grant to start your company. And in some departments, a lot of faculty started companies. And and we also created many schemes for electrical engineers to collaborate with various disciplines, and similarly, humanities people to collaborate with various other disciplines. I think once we started doing all of that, started funding them small amounts of money, right, the results were very visible. In fact, in 5 years at IIT Delhi, we were able to increase our funded research projects 3 times. And we had 4x increase in research funding. We had over 500 patents filed. IIT Delhi filed 500 patents in previous 55 years. In those 5 years, once we launched all these schemes, we filed another 500 patents, 350 plus industry projects we got, 10 new academic units we created, and 13 centers of excellence we created, and all of that happened, and that was all what was needed. All that we did was, we told a faculty member, if you collaborate with somebody from a different discipline, you each will get 5 lakhs each. Right? You get 5 lakhs, the other person also will get 5 lakhs, like a chemistry professor working with electrical engineer, right? Each receives 5 lakhs for 2 years. So institute will invest 20 lakhs in that collaboration. But what is the condition? After receiving the 2 years of grant, during that period, you have to write a proposal to an external agency. You have to approach an industry, you have to approach a government agency, you have to get external funding. The success of that project, the seed money you have received will be judged based on how much money you got from outside, based on the collaboration. So that was a clear metric, because institute doesn't have infinite money. So you can only create some amount of money and give it to them, but they have to go back and get more money. So that was what we spent, about 7 crores at IIT Delhi, through those schemes, and we received almost 130 crores out of those collaborations, right? So that is what we need to be doing in the country. I have seen a lot of people preaching that you go do multidisciplinary, this disciplinary, that disciplinary, but there is no money, right? Unless you put money on the table, on where your mouth is, nothing is actually going to change on the ground. So that 5 lakh rupee grant, that you provide, I can tell you, can make wonders for people to go out and collaborate with people with different disciplines. A lot of good research today is at the intersection of disciplines. As an electrical engineer, what I can do on my own is already done. There is nothing left now, right? Unless I go out of my comfort zone, collaborate with people outside, I cannot even do great research, which can get published in some top journals. So I think this is the kind of a scheme we need to launch at the national level. Right? That is what, in fact, I'm working with ANRF now, and I'm talking to them to launch these kind of schemes which have been great success at the institutional level, to also do it at the national level. But in national level, what happens is, if you are collaborating with chemistry, when you go to an electrical committee, they tell you to go to chemistry committee. The chemistry committee will tell you to go to electrical committee. So therefore, things also need to change at the funding agency level. They need to now admit, take more interdisciplinary kind of projects. They need to create schemes. So things need to change from top to bottom. This is not just changing at the institutional level, but these are the things that we need to be doing, even during the COVID time, right? In fact, COVID is the best example to showcase the innovation potential of our universities. India has a lot of innovation potential. During COVID time at IIT Delhi, I was fortunately or unfortunately director during that peak of the COVID period, right? What we said was any faculty member who wants to work in anything related to COVID, because in COVID time, you don't want to be doing research on nanoelectronics, right? You want to be doing research on COVID. So anybody who wants to work on COVID-related problem, right? Institute will give them the seed grant, about 20 lakh rupees. Their labs will be kept open. They can call their PhD students. So we made all of those promises. Then many faculty stayed back. About 60 faculty stayed back. Their PhD students started working. But essentially, the entire institute was working on one single problem, COVID. Right? So now the entire IIT Delhi working on COVID, during the, that COVID time, we were able to put out all of these projects. A 50 rupee rapid antigen kit we were able to launch, and all these masks we were able to make, because there is a very good textile department at IIT Delhi, and we were able to launch this RT-PCR kit, which was like, for something like 600 rupees. That time in the market, they were charging 3,000 rupees for RT-PCR. We launched it at 600 rupees, and after that, the prices started falling and all of that. So during the COVID time, whatever innovations we brought out, right, touched almost like 15 million people, right? So that is what needs to happen. But then the COVID got over, right? Then the 700 faculty started working on their 1,000 problems. Then everything is gone, right? Now there is nothing will happen after that. So what is basically needed now in the country is to do grand challenges. Right? Somebody, at the national level, setting some grand challenge agenda, right, for the country, and then seeking proposals to solve those problems, right? And then people coming together to solve a problem, right? That is the kind of an approach that we currently require. And if you do that, then people will come together and write proposals. Great things can happen out of this same country, where everybody is, complaining, nothing much is happening. So I think these are the changes in patterns that we need to do. And, but the COVID is a great example of what Indian academia can deliver, during those 18 months, the kind of things that they were able. In fact, we filed more patents during the COVID time. 153 patents we filed during the COVID time than any time in the history of IIT Delhi. Right? That was because, so many people working on one single problem, there was so much of innovation that became possible. I think these are the examples, why I believe, I am hopeful, nothing is lost. All that is required is a funding agencies to change their, way of supporting projects, and more national level grand challenge kind of definitions, so that people can come together, and more institutional mechanisms to support faculty to collaborate with people outside of their disciplines, and then more structured collaborations so that they can even start companies and do all of that. I think these are the things that are required right now. If you do those fixes, I personally believe India has a lot of talent to look forward to. So we also created a lot of centers of excellence and all that also showed up in our ranking. IIT Delhi, raised a lot of money from alumni. IIT Delhi also did very well in rankings. Now today IIT Delhi is actually number 1 in QBest ranking. I don't believe much in these rankings, but if you want to be happy about it, IIT Delhi has overtaken IIT Bombay during my time only, and in NIRF, and now IIT Delhi is the topmost ranked QBest university. So I think these are possible. All that you need to do is you fix these fundamental things, and then everything will be fine. And another, one of the things that I think I have run out of time, so I will take maybe another 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I will close it. So another thing also is about patents, right? Many people, are filing patents now. All of us have filed patents, and many universities, like I told you, are filing patents. Why do you file patent? You never can make money out of those patents, I can tell you. The only people who are making money out of patents are the lawyers in this country. Other than lawyers, nobody is making money. Right? But then why are we filing so many patents? The reason why you file patents is, look at Stanford, right? You think that, let's say, Stanford must be making tons of money on patents. Sitting in the middle of Silicon Valley in California, if Stanford doesn't make money out of their patents, then who will actually do that? You actually can go and check it on their web pages and all that. Stanford made about 0.66% of their budget from the patents, from patent licensing. meaning a faculty member has filed a patent, licensed that to an industry, industry paid a fee, that money at Stanford was less than 1%. Same is with MIT, the two topmost universities in the world. Nobody made money out of patents, right? But why do you file patents then? Why are we all, going after filing patents? The same Stanford University, out of the patents, the intellectual property they created, they allowed startups to flourish, right? The startup ecosystem is essentially dependent on the patenting. If you don't have a patent, there is no deep tech startup. You might develop a product, but if you don't own the IP rights on that product, nobody will even touch you with a barge pole. Nobody will fund you. So therefore, whenever you get into deep tech innovation ecosystem, the patents now form the backbone of all of that. The same Stanford University startups, created out of their IP, their total valuation was something like 3 trillion US dollars. Stanford IP created 3 trillion US dollars of wealth in the US, right? But that is not, something which is a model that in India, everybody tells you, go and give that patent to industry and industry will pay you money. That will never happen. Unless you couple the patenting with the startup ecosystem for deep tech startups, you will never monetize this IP. So therefore, startup ecosystem for deep tech startups needs to go hand in hand with patenting. That's the only way you will ever be able to monetize that, and that is how you create wealth for the industry. So which is, a lesson one can learn from all this real data, looking at the finest institutions in the world today. So that is what is the thing right now. I think at the individual level, you can do many things. What have I done, right? And I was also a researcher at IIT Bombay for 18 years. After all, I came from the best institutions, and so I shouldn't, if I could not do anything out of my own research, who am I to tell you, that you should all be doing that? But I actually, at 18 years at IIT Bombay, I did work very differently. I worked always on a problem-oriented approach. I always wanted to, develop technologies, right? So which can become products eventually. So I started this cardiac diagnostic project at IIT Bombay way back in 2004. Along with some of my colleagues from different departments. This was the first project at IIT Bombay which involved 6 different departments. 6 different departments, about 3 crores of funding in 2004. Our goal was to develop a low-cost cardiac diagnostic system. Heart attacks, to predict heart attacks, you need to monitor certain proteins in the blood, like troponin, myoglobin kind of things. We wanted to develop a lab-on-chip platform to detect these cardiac proteins in a 100 rupee kind of a test. That was our problem statement. It was funded by NPSM at that time. There was a national program. And 6 different departments. I was an associate professor when I got this project. And so with multiple people, we started this work, and we actually built that entire system. We developed a technology. Our end goal was fixed. The price point was fixed. So we innovated in getting that entire technology for 100 rupees kind of a thing. So we developed a nano cantilever platform. I have written at least 100 papers on this platform, and we developed the entire electronics, and like I said, it was a multidisciplinary kind of a project. This was the first prototype that we developed for cardiac diagnosis. You can see developed under funding from those agencies. And then we started a company. In 2011, I started my first company, NanoSniff. We licensed this technology to them. It actually works. It worked in the laboratory. Then we thought it will also work in the field, but that was a mistake we did. What works in the lab need not always work in the field, and particularly in the healthcare sector, it's not always true. So, but we did a lot of innovation. We made we actually made quite a bit of headway. And in 2008, I started another project on explosive detection. And so the same platform, because I had already developed a platform for cardiac diagnosis, and we wanted to do the same thing for explosives by just doing different coatings on these cantilevers. Because I have run out of time, I won't get into those details. But a lot of science went into that. A lot of PhD students, at least 30 PhD students worked on some of these problems. Out of my 53 PhD students, more than half of them worked on these problems. And then we built this entire platform. And then we actually, this is now you will see in many airports. In fact, we developed a nano electromechanical system-based explosive detector, right? And so can you please play this video? This is a 2.5-minute video that will show you what exactly is that. So this is now in many airports in India, almost all the airports. Can you play that? It's not working or working, so it's okay. That's okay if it doesn't work. But you can, it's all on YouTube. Oh, it's working. Oh, no. There is a separate file I loaded, right? Yeah, you can play that. You also loaded a separate file, right? So this technology took us full 10
Vehant
years. Yeah.
Technologies, an IIT Delhi incubated company, and NanoSniff, an IIT Bombay incubated company, jointly manufacture and launch NanoSniffer, an advanced and affordable explosive trace detector, screening visitors and passengers for explosives at various public or crowded spots have become the norm due to the increase in the terrorist activities around the globe. Every luggage and person passing through the security checkpoint is tested by the security officer to check whether they have traces of explosives on their surface, skin, or hair. NanoSniffer proudly claims to be the first explosive trace detector in the world using micro-sensor technology. The micro-sensor of NanoSniffer is made using micro-electromechanical system, MEMS technology in semiconductor fab. The sensor uses fabrication techniques such as lithography, etching, deposition, spin coating, and finally released to the microsensor. The core technology is protected by patents in the US and Europe. All of our actions leave trace behind, which is then screened by the security personnel. The security has to concentrate at the sampling areas that are likely to be touched by hands. In the case of a bag, this will include handle, buckle, and zipper. Post-sampling, the swipe is inserted into the system where micro-heater subjects the particles into rapid heating. In case of explosives, this trigger exothermic reactions which are picked up by the integrated temperature sensor of the micro-heater, thereby landing each compound in its own thermal signature. The algorithms use these signatures to distinguish between explosives and non-explosives. Further analysis of the algorithms help in categorization into the appropriate class of explosives. The follow are few NanoSniffer features. It is the first microsensor-based ETD. It detects and identifies explosives in less than 10 seconds. Identifies and categorizes explosives into different classes, can detect ng quantities of explosives traces. It detects all classes of military, conventional and homemade explosives. It is portable and affordable. It gives visible and audible alerts with sunlight readable color display. NanoSniffer, explosives trace detection technology, can be deployed at airports, railway stations, ports, malls, metro stations, corporate parks, hotels, and tourist spots. The goal is to intercept and prevent access of explosives trafficking. NanoSniffer is 100% made in India product.
Yeah, so can go back to the presentation now. So this technology is currently in 13 airports in India. Now we have got a large order, so almost every airport, including Hyderabad airport, will get this. After the X-ray checkpoint, you have a small system there where they do scanning for explosives. These are these systems, and this is a completely disruptive technology. We have all worldwide patents now, and we are able to sell it now everywhere. And this was launched by Ministry of Education during the COVID time because it was all funded by government projects. And now this has taken off very well. It has all the patents and everything. And so after we did this, we did much more research to reduce the size and all that. I'll skip that, but our goal is to get them into buses and trains as a sniffing device. So that's a project which is anyway ongoing. And but then after I moved to IIT Delhi, I started a big project between IIT Delhi and IIT Bombay on agricultural sensors because I saw that there is so much of potential to develop technologies for agriculture. So we looked at a soil health card which Government of India has given to farmers. We said, why can't we develop all these sensors indigenously, right, and in a low-cost kind of a fashion, make them available for the farmers. So again, based on a real challenge that you have today. And so we started working on it between IIT Delhi and IIT Bombay. And we started with 4 prototypes: volatile tracking, pathogen detection, moisture, pH and salinity, micro and macronutrients. And we started working in it. After about 3 years, we launched this product called NutriSense. It can do NPK, nitrate, phosphate, potassium. It can do electrical conductivity. It can do pH. We launched this product in 2021. And this is now picking up very well. In fact, it has got tested. We had Telangana Agricultural University also as a partner for that. Now this is widely being sold in many states. And so we started our second company called Soil Sense in 2018. That was my second company. And so this company is now marketing it. And so both these companies, NanoSniff and Soil Sense, are doing things very well. They are now established companies. NanoSniff is not even a startup now. It's a full-fledged company. And they are working with all airports and security agencies. And the Soil Sense is also doing very well in terms of providing these technologies for Indian farmers. And so these technologies have taken off very well now. They are all now good companies. And then after I moved to BITS Pilani about 2.5 years ago, I started a project on organic dosimeters. For cancer patients, when they are given cancer treatment, the radiation treatment, the radiation value needs to be measured. The exact dose and the profile needs to be matched with the cancer tumor. Right? How do you do that? Today they all use those counters, the Giger-Müller counters and all of that, but which are expensive. Our goal is to develop simple organic transistor-based patches which can actually do the detection. And I had filed a US patent which got granted in 2013. That's a method and device for determining ionizing radiation when I was at IIT Bombay, but we never did anything with that patent. So now we have taken it out, and now in BITS and IIT Delhi as a collaborating institution, now we have a large project funded by Ministry of Electronics to develop those radiation dosimeters for cancer patients. That way the cancer treatment, the radiation therapy, those costs can come down because we will have indigenous detectors for that. So that is what we are doing using organic. So I will skip that, but a lot of work is already being done now, and I have in fact a large group in BITS Hyderabad which is working on dosimeters. So this is again working very well. We have industry partners, and another 2 years from now we hope to start our third company on the radiation detectors. So that's what it is, and so this is basically how at least I did my research. And I was able to enable this for IIT Delhi, and now in BITS Pilani we are doing something very similar. So more prototypes, right, to products, and products are now generating profits, and those profits will go back to doing research. So that's the kind of a model that we have in all of these. NanoSniff is now doing very well. Soil Sense is also doing very well, and so they are pretty well established companies now. And so India, I think, is lots of opportunities. Right? If you can only focus on real problems and then do research in a multidisciplinary kind of a way with the solution as the key, right? Not problem, not solutions looking for a problem, rather solution to a problem. I think that's a kind of a change that needs to happen in our system, but there are a lot of funding schemes now. When I started in 2011, when my first company, there were not enough funding schemes. But today now there is so much of money. I was talking to the NanoSniff guys, do you need any money? They said, no sir, we don't want any money now, because money also means equity dilution. No money, grants everybody will welcome, but you don't want any private investment kind of a thing. So I think but if you look at US, right, this is a very good example of US. There is something called a smile curve. What is smile curve? Smile curve is somebody is actually plotting, this is a management theory, value addition in a company. Where does the company make maximum money? To develop a product, you need to do all of that. You have a concept, you have branding, you have design, manufacturing, distribution, marketing, sales, and after sales. That's how every product cycle is. In all these product cycles, which part of the product actually makes money? If you look at the maximum money is made on the concept and R&D, on the branding, and the other extreme is sales and marketing. Right? Manufacturing only gives about 5% kind of a profit for the companies, right? If you look at US companies, look at Apple. Apple doesn't do any manufacturing. Apple gets all the manufacturing done from Foxconn. What is the Foxconn valuation? About $60 billion, $70 billion. What is Apple valuation? Which doesn't even do any manufacturing, only does the concept and R&D, does the branding, does the marketing, right? Their market value is like $3 trillion US, right? Apple is the most valued company in the world, right? So therefore, the companies which do product design, product thinking, they are the ones who actually make all the money, not the people who actually do the manufacturing. So I want to see more Indian companies out of academia thinking of a product idea. right? If you have the product idea, the manufacturing you can get from anywhere now. But that idea is important. What is that product idea which can solve a problem, right? If you look at US is the only country which has these trillion-dollar companies. There is not a single trillion-dollar valued company in Europe. Not a single company. The only trillion-dollar company outside of US is basically the Saudi Arabia oil company. Other than that, there is no company which has actually touched $1 trillion. And their concept is all that none of those companies, actually makes any products, right? They design products, they think of a product, they go to Taiwan, China to get them manufactured. I think that is the kind of a thing which India needs to do now. I want to see more product startups out of our universities, right? Thinking of new ideas, and the manufacturing will anyway follow. So I will stop here. Thank you so much.